edition of the North Louisiana versus all y'all. Sean Fox here for Sports Talk 97.7. Last week we started college, then we went to high school. Let's start high school first. And again, another city versus country matchup. Calvary Baptist, after a fantastic football game versus the Neville Tigers last week. They traveled to Winsboro, Louisiana to take on undefeated Franklin Parish. Last week, Abe Wardell, I've got his stats right here, was fantastic. Went for 376 yards and 6 touchdowns in that loss. He has got a phenomenal connection with Kobe Thomas, the Louisiana Tech commitment. They had a monster game last week, but not enough against Neville, losing a great one, 42-38. This is going to be an interesting matchup because Franklin Parish had a breakthrough year last year under Adrian Burnett. They're even better this year. They've got a veteran quarterback in Des Ellis. They've got 2 defensive ends who have P4 offers. They think this is one of their best teams they've ever had. So this is an interesting matchup in Winsboro between Calvary Baptist and Franklin Parish. This could be a we have arrived game for Franklin Parish. The West Monroe Rebels, they've got a tough road trip coming up, tough stretch, coming up. They lost last week to Pulaski Academy in Arkansas. I told you how good they were last week. The Rebels scored 47. Unfortunately, they gave up 67. After this game, after that game, they play at a very good North DeSoto team, one of the top teams in 4A. We'll talk about that in a second. And then next week, they go to Catholic. It is an awfully tough stretch for the Rebels. The bad news is they lost, gave up 67 points. The good news is I think the Rebels found something offensively, and tailback Randaldrick Miles. Yes, they probably do call him Booby. He ran for 4 touchdowns for the Rebels in that loss. He looks the part of the old prototype West Monroe running back. Don't be surprised if they don't run Miles the rest of the way. I was impressed with what he did last week in that loss to Pulaski. On the other side, Luke Delafield will be out with his best weapon. And one of the top wide receivers in the state of Louisiana, Kobe Cole, got injured in the loss over Center, Texas. No status on whether or not he's going to be back. He went for over 1,400 yards last year, so that's a big bullet in the gun that North DeSoto won't have. But that's 2 really good teams squaring off across I-20, West Monroe going to North DeSoto. Ruston, it feels like they might be playing more out-of-state schools than anybody in history. Last week, they dominated Cabot. Arkansas got down 7-0. Then they ran off 42 straight, beating Cabot. This time, they go on the road to a traditional Texas power and Longview. Ruston's really good. We know Ruston's really good. They are arguably one of the top teams in the state of Louisiana. This will be a big test because when it comes to East Texas, Longview is one of those heavyweights. So we'll see just how good Ruston is going against a very, very strong Longview Lobo program. Another Louisiana versus out-of-state matchup is Holmes County, Mississippi. One of the best teams in Mississippi head to Monroe to take on Neville. A lot of talent in this one. Cam Riley, ULL commitment for the Tigers. Brody Watley committed to TCU. Jalen Nichols, an exciting 3-star running back for the Tigers. They got a good young sophomore quarterback. But actually the most highly rated player in this game is going to be on the other side. They've got a safety, and Cortez Holmes does, Holmes County, who is currently a 4-star and an Ole Miss commitment. A rare matchup between 2 teams that are close but have rarely ever squared off. Sterlington makes the short trip to take on the Washita Lions. Sterlington's 2-0, 2 dominant victories over Rayville and Tioga. They are a very good running football team. Washita got their first win of the season last week on the road against Wassman, pitching a shutout against the Wildcats. MJ Dade, St. Frederick commitment, was able to play his first game for the Lions, and it helped. He went over 200 yards and a couple scores. Interested to see Sterlington again. Great rushing attack. But can they get it going against those 2 behemoths in the middle for Washington, Dylan Berriman and A.J. Washington? Those are guys going to play at a high level on Saturday in the near future. Then finally, it might be at the small school level, but it is one of the biggest games around here every single year. It is the longest running rivalry in the state of Louisiana. Homer at Haynesville. It is the Claiborne Parish Super Bowl. It is a huge deal in Claiborne Parish in northwest Louisiana. Homer's 0-2, but they've played 2 upper-class teams. Richie Casey's done a really nice job there. Of course, Haynesville, rinse, repeat. They're state title contenders every year, and this year is no different. At the college level, ULM's coming off a bye week being 2-0. Might be a big reality check. They're on the road against the number one seed, number one team in the country, the Texas Longhorns. They don't have Quinn Ewers. They just put in Louisiana legend Arch Manning. Look, it's going to take a miracle for the Warhawks to pull this off. You just want to get out there healthy, because I do think the next week against Troy, they've got a chance to compete. I do think ULM, if they've played like they did the first two games, have an opportunity to make some noise in the Sun Belt Conference, but they've got to get out of this game against Texas healthy. And maybe, you know what, who knows? Maybe a miracle can happen in Austin. But a lot of people excited to see Arch Manning get his first started, ironically, against a Louisiana team. Louisiana Tech is back home after a loss to NC State on the road at Raleigh. Bulldogs led this thing at halftime 17-6, but Jack Turner threw a pick six on the first possession. It kind of snowballed, and Louisiana Tech loses to NC State 30-20. However, the good news is it looks like Louisiana Tech finally found a weapon on the outside. Former Tech great Troy Edwards, his son True, had his biggest game, had a 71-yard touchdown reception, over 100 yards receiving. Maybe that's something Tech can continue. They take on Tulsa coming off a loss to Oklahoma State. They give up a lot of explosive plays, so hopefully Tech can continue what they started against NC State and get a win at home against the Golden Hurricane. Big game at Grambling. Jackson State comes to town. I actually had an opportunity to call Jackson State against ULM on ESPN+. I think Jackson State is one of the most talented teams in the SWAC, maybe the most talented team in the SWAC. But they're going to Grambling, going to the hole. This should be a massive crowd, an unbelievable atmosphere. And Grambling is coming off a win on the road against Texas A&M Commerce. They did it in overtime, and they got 4 interceptions. Their secondary is going to need to play like that again, because Jackson State's got a really good quarterback in Jacoby and Morgan and a ton of weapons on the outside. Big game at Grambling. And then finally, we talked about it last week, Northwestern State. They gave up 87 against South Alabama. They're not playing South Alabama. They're playing Weber State this weekend. I don't know much about Weber State except their basketball team had a guy named Harold Arsenault, and they knocked off North Carolina back in the day. Good luck to the Demons. For Louisiana versus all y'all, I'm Sean Fox.